Thank you, everybody, for joining me on this month's webinar of what's new with the DocuSign integration. A couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar will be recorded and available for viewing on our Cities Digital client portal, along with some helpful resources. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please don't hesitate to type them into the chat box on the GoToWebinar screen. Then after the presentation is complete, I will go through and address any questions that are asked. So again, thank you everybody for joining this month's webinar on what's new with the DocuSign integration. My name is Laura Froyum, and I'm the sales director here at Cities Digital, or CDI. Today's agenda, we'll be taking a look at what digital signatures are, the benefits, the functionality checklist of the Laserfiche integration with DocuSign developed by CDI, the new features, as well as a demo and some use cases. So let's get started. Something I always like to cover whenever we're going over digital signatures is what is the difference between an electronic signature and a digital signature. This is something that gets confused very frequently, and so we're just going to touch on it again. And if you have been coming to my webinars in the past, a couple of these slides probably look familiar, but an electronic signature shows intent to sign a document. However, it can't be validated. So an electronic signature would be something like when you are signing with a keypad at certain locations. That would not be a validated or a signature that could be validated. It shows intent, but it doesn't have verification. Whereas a digital signature is more like an electronic fingerprint, and it contains secure information regarding and pertaining to the signer. It's authorized and regulated by certification authorities. You can use it to secure a document. It has been held up, or it has held up in court, leveraging DocuSign functionality and all of the digital signature capabilities. So it can be verified. A digital signature can be verified, an electronic signature cannot. So we'll just go over a couple of the benefits, because I imagine by now, if you've been hearing about DocuSign and you're leveraging Laserfiche, you probably know some of these benefits already. So faster document turnaround, signing documents on the go, reducing costs, and improving overall client experience. By leveraging the DocuSign integration with Laserfiche, you can accommodate and reap the benefits of all of these items here. You can incorporate it as part of a workflow. You can send it out on demand. Some of the new features that we're going to go over are pretty exciting. So let's get started there. The DocuSign integration, just overall in general, allows you to implement digital signatures. So our integration consists of two parts. It's got the ability to allow you to send documents out of your Laserfiche system on demand or as part of a workflow. And then the second part of the integration is a listener. So that listener monitors your DocuSign account and pulls back signed documents into the repository automatically once they've been signed. So you can send documents out, and once they've been signed, they pull back into your Laserfiche system, all with just a couple clicks. So if you're interested in this functionality, what do you need? You, first of all, need a DocuSign account. You also need the CDI DocuSign integration. You need a Laserfiche on-premise installation. It can be hosted, but essentially a United, Avante, Rio, or subscription on-prem licensing, Windows 7 or newer, and an SSL certificate. The top three items are items that you can get from CDI directly, so we can provide you with DocuSign licensing and Laserfiche and the integration and any professional services that may be needed to help you configure it and get everything set up. but then just installed on a server, a Windows server that's version 7 or newer. And then an SSL certificate is something that DocuSign requires as part of the purchase of the application so that you can securely transmit your documents. There are a few different versions of DocuSign that are out there. And if you're looking to take advantage of DocuSign with the integration in your Laserfiche application, you do need to go with the Enterprise Pro Edition. This allows us the capabilities to make the connections between the applications and provide you the integration. Again, this licensing and pricing for the integration is something that the CDI team can provide, so just reach out and let us know if you've got questions or are ready to get started. So now let's dive into the integration and what's new. So we're on DocuSign version 4.0, and this integration has been a complete ground up rewrite to the workflow activities to allow optimal flexibility when leveraging this functionality. We've moved from 4 activities down to 3. Sounds kind of crazy since this is allowing us to do more, but let's go through them. So we've got the send DocuSign envelope. This replaces the request DocuSign signature and request DocuSign signature with attachment activities from the previous versions of the integration. We've also got the retrieve DocuSign envelope information. This replaces the retrieve DocuSign envelope status XML and retrieve DocuSign envelope XML activities from the previous versions as well. And then we have the for each DocuSign envelope receipt. And I'm going to go through these more in detail next. So send a DocuSign envelope. So this is probably the most fun activity because it really allows us to do a lot more. So if you're familiar with our integration as it was before version 4.0, it really only allowed you the ability to take metadata information from Laserfiche and push that data into a fillable document or template in your DocuSign account. Now, with the way that the activity is configured going forward, we have the ability to push actual Laserfiche documents to DocuSign for signature. There are some easier ways to do that. So instead of just pushing data, we can push actual documents, which I think flows a lot more in line with what our clients were expecting. I mean, this was something that had been asked for, and so we listened and rewrote the integration, and it's now available. So configuring DocuSign workflow activities is easier than ever with version 4.0. So with this, again, you start by entering your DocuSign credentials when you're configuring it, just like you would have before. We now have the ability to notate whether it's going to be using a demo account or your live account. We would definitely recommend getting a demo account set up with DocuSign if you don't currently have one, because that allows us to build out these workflows and test your processes without taking and using your existing paid DocuSign envelopes. So DocuSign accounts are free. Again, if you're interested in getting one, just let us know and we can help you through it. So once you've got that configured, you have now the ability to add Access Authentication. So when you add your recipients in, when you're configuring the workflow module and that tool, you have the ability to specify their name and email, but you can also configure additional access authentication. So if you've got a client who maybe has a shared email, maybe a husband and wife, and they share an email, but you're sending some documents to the husband to sign, you can add an additional add in an additional access code, give that man a call or the spouse a call, give them the additional code, and then that way when they get the email, only one person has the ability to type in the code and sign the document. It's another way to verify that the appropriate person is signing when there's a shared email address in as part of the process. Another new feature is the ability to add a private message. and interact with that. So as part of the workflow that you're configuring, if you are sending a DocuSign envelope out to multiple recipients and you want to configure a private message for a particular role within that workflow or that process, you can set that up. So you can configure private messages and that will update the email body and subject line to be what you want it to be. So you can specify who gets what message as part of your workflow process now. We also have the ability to interact with the InPerson Signer. So you now have the ability to, let's say you're working with a client that doesn't have their own email address, and you really just want to incorporate digital signatures, you can now do the InPerson Signer. So when they come to your office, you have the ability to select the InPerson Signer as part of your recipient role. So you can have a workflow set up just for in-person signers. And then from there, you would have the ability to log into your DocuSign account and then go through all of the documentation with that client who's sitting in your office, but then allow them to do the signing in person with you in your office on like an iPad or something. So you can easily guide them throughout the signing process and fully take advantage of digital signatures. We also have the ability to manage the envelope options. So if you want to specify, overall what you want the email template to say when it gets signed out, you have the ability to do that within the workflow designer. So with this release of the integration, you have a lot more flexibility in configuring activities that were available in DocuSign before, but interacting with them as part of your Laserfiche workflow so that you don't have to type it in every time and you don't have to have it be a manual process because you can build it all into the workflow. Another really exciting feature, I think, because I've come across this a couple times when working with some of our wealth management firms, but you have the ability to set up your workflow so that it sends out immediately. It sends the documentation out immediately for signature, or it saves it as a draft. So I've talked with teams who, they require so many approval processes, which, is not uncommon. But one of them was they needed to be approved after they had been approved to go to DocuSign. And so now we have the ability to save it as a draft. And then from there, they could go into their DocuSign account and review the draft envelopes. And then once they've been approved, they can click send and it goes out. And then again, from there, once the signer has completed signature, it pulls back into the repository. So having the ability to send it out immediately or save it as a draft so that you can have additional approvals made on it, I think is really exciting. So moving on to one of the next activities, the send DocuSign envelope. You have this is the same activity, but it allows us to pull back only one token from DocuSign. So it pulls back the DocuSign envelope ID, and then from there, we can pull additional information. So here, if we look at the DocuSign template that we've loaded into DocuSign, I've just got the offer letter up, and this is what I'm going to show you a demo on today. But we can see here, we just uploaded a fillable Word document. So all of these fields that I have highlighted are fields that fields of information that we can push from Laserfiche to complete this form and send out to our end user. In this particular scenario too that I'm going to be demoing, we are going to send out the offer letter as well as the I-9 form so we can collect some additional information. So now moving on to one of the next activities, retrieve DocuSign envelope information. So with the retrieve DocuSign envelope information, this isn't necessarily a new feature, but figured I would mention it again since it's a part of this combined activity. So with this, you have the ability to pull back specified fields within your DocuSign template as the end user completes it, and then incorporate that into your workflow process. So you can use those as tokens as part of your Laserfiche workflow to keep information moving throughout your system. And we'll go over an example of that here. So here's some of the tokens that you can pull back. So the envelope status, the completed date, the creation date, if they enter their social security number, their first, their last name, all of these tokens you can pull back into your system automatically and then build those into the workflow process to maybe change the name on a folder or update some metadata. You can also use the envelope status information to run reports in your Laserfiche system. So if you've got that incorporated into your template and automatically getting applied to your template when you send a document, you can then run searches on the envelope status and see what documents or what envelopes are still outstanding for signature. So you don't have to leave Laserfiche ever. You can just remain in there, run that report, see what needs to be handled, and then take action from there. So leveraging these tokens as part of your workflow and applying it to the metadata allows you to run reports in your system. So as you can see here in this little screenshot, it's just showing the DocuSign completed date and the DocuSign document status as part of a fields that were applied to the metadata on the document. You can incorporate it as part of a template, or you can just have it append fields. So the for each DocuSign envelope is used in conjunction with the retrieve DocuSign envelope information activity, and it allows us to pull back status information for all the recipients as part of an envelope. So if you are sending out a contract that needs to be signed by more than one recipient, we can track all of the status activity for each recipient as they take action on that document. So that is what the for each DocuSign envelope recipient activity does. So not only do we have the workflow activities as part of the integration, but we also have the toolbar configuration that works on the desktop client. Oh, I messed up my screenshots. On the desktop client, as well as you can configure it here in your web client. So regardless of which client you're using, you have the ability to configure that static toolbar button so that you can send documents out on demand when needed. All right, so let's take a look at a demo. Looks like I got locked out here. So what I wanted to pull up first is the workflow designer, and I just wanted to just kind of walk through it. So we are going to, again, onboard a new employee, and we have this as part of a full HR onboarding process. I'm not going to go through the whole process, but we're at the point now where we're ready to send out an offer letter. So we're going to go ahead and submit a form. And then once that form is submitted, it's going to kick off this workflow. And it's going to grab the token information and then send the DocuSign envelope to our recipient. And then once it's signed, it's going to retrieve that information. It's going to extract some token information, and then it's going to rename and file our documents. So let's take a look at that. So here I'm in my repository in employee files, and I've got just 4 employees in here. So I'm going to submit for a new employee. We are going to hire Justin Steen. Justin Steen is still a current employee of Cities Digital, but we'll use him in the example here. $100,000, and then he's going to work out of our Hudson office. So I really only need to type in these 4 fields when I'm getting ready to complete an offer letter. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this. So again, this form is going to kick off the workflow that is going to do all of the magic. And currently, Justin's form folder does not exist in our employee files, so we'll get to watch that. So now if I jump over to my email, I should be getting some emails from DocuSign. So this is a view of what your end users see when they get an email to complete a document for signature. So here again, you have the ability to customize the subject line and the body of the email. And then from there, we can just review the documents. I didn't apply any additional authentication to this or additional access code information. So it'll just walk us through it. Start. I'm going to go ahead and sign this. I'm going to sign it as myself. And then actually, my name isn't Justin Steen, it's Laura Froyum. But I'm going to use a different last name, just so I can show you that it's going to change the folder, because I think there is already a Laura in there. Adopt and sign. Everything looks good. I'm going to finish that out. Do I want to save a copy of it? No, I don't. So here, if I hop back into my employees folder, I didn't keep it as Laura Froyum because I wanted to be able to see the change when it came in. So now if I refresh, so I just have to wait for workflow to do its thing, and typically you don't run a workflow and immediately turn around to that folder. So here we can see that a new folder has been created for Laura Anderson. If I open it up, we'll be able to see that 3 documents had been added to this folder. And I can take a look at the certification for this. So this is the authentication information pertaining to these signed documents. So I'll just open it up and we can take a look at it. So we can pull back the envelope XML so that, again, you don't have to log back into DocuSign at any point to get all of the certificate of completion information. We can pull it in automatically. If I go to my next document here, we can take a look at the offer letter. You can see that I have signed it down here. And then if I go back to the first document, we'll be able to see my completed W-4. And again, as the staff member onboarding this new employee, all I had to do was fill out those initial 4 fields on the Laserfiche form, and then Forms and Laserfiche in the integration did the rest. It sent the document out for signature. It, once the document was signed, pulled it back in, created the folder structure, and it did all of that automatically. Additionally, it applied and updated the metadata information. It captured and added the social security number for us as part of the metadata. So again, all of these fields that I typed in, you have the ability to interact with once it gets pulled back into Laserfiche and manipulate workflow to have it do whatever you want with it. So if we jump back into the PowerPoint here, I just wanted to go over a few use cases again. So sometimes it's hard to think about ideas on where this could be used besides this, one on my contracts or on my HR. There's really a lot of use cases for digital signatures. I mean, in sales, HR, finance, IT. So really, there's endless options for incorporating digital signatures into your organization. And again, the reasons why you might want to do that would be faster document turnaround, being able to sign documents on the go so things keep moving, reducing your costs. I mean, you're not printing out paper, you're not waiting around anymore. It's all instantaneous with DocuSign. And then improving your overall client experience. So that is all I had today. So for the integration overview and what's new. So I just want to give a shout out for my next month's webinar. We are going to do a demo and poke through the repository and see how you can leverage using SQL tables to streamline your automation. So leveraging a SQL table to populate metadata information or pre-fill forms or update forms, things like that. Well, I appreciate your time. And again, at the end of the webinar, you will receive a brief survey. And please remember that your feedback is valuable to us. So please go ahead and rate and let us know what you think. And if you have any ideas for subject matter that you'd like to see in the next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Bye.